Tent, bivvy or hammock. This is a choice every bike packer has to make, and as it has such a huge impact on how your bike rides, it's one you've got to get right.
Will it be my beloved bivy bag? Quick to pitch, lightweight and super packable.
Is the traditional tent still the king of camping comfort, with ultimate protection, privacy and a home from home?
Or is the Humble Hammock worthy of more credit? A supremely comfortable hangout that's pretty minimal too.
We've got 3 very different setups for bikepacking adventures, but which is best?
Now before we get riding and chatting about our favourite setups, a big thank you to our sponsor, MagicShine, for giving us the latest eyewear and making this video happen.
So we've met up here in the New Forest to enjoy some of the best gravel riding in the south of England, and to help you decide which is the best camping setup for you.
This Vango F10 Helium 200 cost me nothing. I borrowed it from my dad about 4 or 5 years ago and I never gave it back. A modern equivalent of this model costs around £250, but for a cheaper, slightly heavier model, you're looking from around £100 for a starting price. Or you can do as my frugal father did and buy one second-hand, and I think he got this one for about £100. And generally speaking, the second-hand tent market is buoyant with loads of good deals available. I'll start by laying out what I believe are the pros of a tent for bikepacking. To start, tents provide far superior protection from the elements compared to a bivy bag or a hammock. This is especially true in wet or windy weather. In a tent, you are enclosed, away, safe from the elements. A tent also offers far superior comfort and breathability compared to the other options. They give you more storage space, more living space, and on those chillier nights, they're also much warmer. They also offer way more privacy, which makes them a much better choice for campsites or in areas where you just want a little bit more seclusion. Also, if like me, you like the traditional touring experience, you can share the wonderful outdoors with your partner or friend, and a bigger tent is always going to be more sociable than 2 bivy bags or hammocks. Practically speaking, it's also much easier to split the load of a tent between riding buddies. Maybe someone takes the fly sheet in the outer, someone else the poles. You can spread the load amongst your pals. Finally, tents are more popular than bivy bags or hammocks, so there's way more options on the market, and as I mentioned, you can get really good deals second-hand. So generally speaking, they're a bit cheaper too. While I am absolutely a tent evangelist, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and tents of course have some downsides. To start, tents are way heavier than hammocks or bivy bags. You've got poles, 2 layers of fabric, more hardware, they're just heavier. They can easily be the heaviest item in your bikepacking kit list, which will impact how your bike feels when you're riding, especially when you're climbing. They also have a larger footprint, which can make stealth camping a bit more challenging. If you're trying to stay unnoticed, a tent is not the best choice. On that subject, camping laws vary across the world, so no matter where you are, check out the rules first and respect them. Lastly, tents are harder to pitch than a bivy bag or a hammock. Small ones like this are pretty simple, but they take practice. I haven't done this one in a little while, but it still took me 7 minutes, and I haven't done a particularly good job, it's a little bit saggy. So in a fast-paced situation like an ultra race, it's not going to be your #1 choice. Most tents can be pitched by just 1 person, but larger models are generally easier with 2 people. My #1 bit of advice in this area is before you go off on your wonderful bikepacking jolly, even if you're with friends, practice before you leave. You don't want to be in horrible weather in the middle of some grim field trying to work out how to pitch your tent. If you are expecting bad weather, follow these 2 important steps. #1, consider which way your tent's facing. Don't put the big flat face facing into the wind. And #2, do spend some time pitching it really well and even read the manufacturer instructions. Don't do what I do, toxic mail, and just assume you know how to do it, because I guarantee there'll be some good tips in there which get you a nice taut tent, which will be secure, dry, lovely, warm and comfortable in even the wettest weather. For me, the comfort offered by a tent is what wins me over. My last trip with my partner Laura was very much on the bike glamping end of things, with a luxurious 3-person tent, all the kit we could ever need, and even a little gas lantern. Weight isn't a consideration really for the type of trip we're wanting to do, because the camping is as much a part of the holiday as the cycling, so comfort wins out here. Our touring tent is a Vango Erebus 3 Plus. It's got a massive vestibule, which is wonderful for cooking, storing kit out of your living area, and leaving that lovely little Amazon gas lantern hissing with a soothing ambiance. On the other hand, while this little tent is certainly more comfortable than a bivy bag, it is way more cramped, so not suitable for longer expeditions. So while the big tent is wonderful for holidaying, this is certainly what I'd be taking for a solo adventure. In terms of weight, this little tent weighs around 1.2 kilograms, and that's around typical for a lightweight tent of this era. It is possible to go even lighter, but you have to spend absolutely ludicrous amounts of money, and in fact, most are heavier than this tent. In comparison, the big Erebus 3 Plus, which is quite lightweight for a big tent, is around 2.6 kilos, so significantly more. For a solo adventure, when good weather is guaranteed, a bivy bag can be a terrific option, and I have done lots of bivy bagging, but it was when I was lying in a glorified plastic bag in the middle of a family camping site in mid-Wales with children running around me, surrounded by giant tents, I realised it really wasn't for me. And then I sold it to Catherine. If you're prioritising comfort over weight or size, or if you're bikepacking in really terrible weather conditions, a tent wins out every single time. But before you go out and buy a tent, you need to consider the type of riding you're doing and where you intend on sleeping before you go full team tent. Oh, you kidding me?
So we're back on the road, a little tubeless repair.
I did a big jump on a touring bike, what a fool. But after 3 failed plugs, number 4 worked, and we are clicking our way to a little pizza and drink. It's genuinely nuts, it's honestly like...
I use this bivy bag on pretty much all my minimalist bikepacking rides, so it makes my bike feel nice and speedy. It's the Outdoor Research Helium Bivy, and it's got a hoop there so you can still breathe when you're trying to sleep. As you can see, bivy bags are basically a sleeping bag, but they're made out of a breathable and waterproof material. So with your sleeping bag and sleeping mat inside it, the bivy bag is basically your main protection from the outside elements. So this model costs about £250 or $225, which is definitely not a budget option. However, you can get cheaper ones. You can also get more expensive ones, such as the Outdoor Research Alpine Ascent Shell. Now with that model, you do get a few more features, but the cost goes right up to around £350. Now of course, those options are on the more expensive end. You can get really sort of, budget ones which cost around £50, such as the Outkit Hunker. Now the primary advantage to a bivy bag is the fact that they're super lightweight and super packable, which makes them a really good choice for bikepacking. Because they're so easy to pack, they fit in a really wide variety of bikepacking bags, and obviously that will keep your bike nice and nimble. They're also really quick and easy to set up and take down, so when you need to bed down quickly, they're a great option. Bivy bags offer a unique, minimalist camping experience, even more so than a hammock or a tent. Now that isn't always going to be best, depending on who or what you're sharing your campsite with, but it could make for a really magical experience. Now there are, of course, some disadvantages. The first one being that no bivy bag is truly comfortable. Now they're terrific at providing basic shelter, but in prolonged rain or even in light rain, it's very likely that you and your gear are going to get wet. Now unlike a tent, a bivy bag is just made up of a single skin construction. This means there's no gap between the inner and outer shell, meaning the airflow is restricted. Therefore, it's highly likely that condensation is going to form inside your bivy bag, which isn't very nice. Now this one does have a vent here, or a fly sheet, which kind of goes over your head, but obviously that's not going to protect you from the rain. With all that said, bivy bagging is a bit of a balancing act between, well, semi-comfort and survival. Hammocks provide a much more pleasant experience when it comes to airflow. And for many, that might be enough to push you over to the hammock. Another point to consider is gear storage is next to nothing. As you can see, I could probably squeeze in a helmet, glasses and some shoes and a few extras, but again, that is just making your sleep space even smaller. And a final point here is that bivy bags don't really offer you any privacy, and getting into your kit and out of your kit can be a challenge in itself. Once you've found a flat and sheltered spot, a bivy bag can be set up in minutes. Some models, such as this one, have a small hoop or pole, but they're a lot easier to set up than a tent or a hammock. I love planning 2-day bikepacking trips where I push my endurance that little bit harder. Using the bivy bag, it really helps me keep the bike's weight down. And I can cram in my whole sleep system, so that's the mat, the sleeping bag and the bivy, in this handlebar bag. And this is why they're so popular with unsupported ultra cycling, where speed is more important than comfort. Now, compared to Jack's hefty load, this bivy bag only weighs 500 grams. For solo, go fast adventures, I would always choose a bivy bag. They're lightweight, they're easy to pitch, and you can put them practically anywhere. Now, they're obviously not for everyone, but for me, well, I'm a bivy bagger for life.
Hammocks can be a really comfortable alternative for if, like me, you really struggle to sleep on the ground. They also double up as a camp chair, as a washing line, and they're surprisingly difficult to fall out of. Hammocking can also be a really great low-cost option. Some of the cheapest ones will set you back a little under £30 or $40. I'm using the DD Superlight Hammock twinned with the ropes from their entry-level DD Camping Hammock, and this one will set you back £57 or $89. All you need to get started is the hammock itself, especially if it's a beautiful, warm, dry night like tonight. But if it's going to be any wetter or windier, then you'll really benefit from having a tarp, so that'll keep the rain off of you and it'll help keep the wind chill off. And if it's any colder, then you'll really benefit from using an underblanket. Now, this is like an extra sleeping bag that hangs underneath the hammock, and it traps a layer of warm air between you and the outside world, keeping your bum and thighs just that bit cozier. Now, I use the DD Superlight tarp, which retails at £77 or $99, and the DD Underblanket, which is £55 or $87. And there's loads of different hammock models and sizes to choose from, including those with bug nets. So that's a bit about my hammock setup, but why do I prefer it to a tent or a bivvy? I just love how hammock camping brings you so much closer to nature. There's nothing better than waking up with the dawn chorus and a beautiful canopy overhead, or falling asleep with the sight of the stars. However, you're never going to get the same amount of privacy in a hammock as you would in a tent. Certainly one of the biggest disadvantages of using a hammock is you're more limited as to where you can pitch up, because you do need something to tie it to on either end. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be trees. You can pitch between right angles in fence posts, metal girders, I've even strung up in marquees before. But places like open moorland and areas with dry stone walls like the Yorkshire Dales are a big no-no, as I found out the hard way. However, you can also rig up on some really steep slopes, which sometimes comes in super handy. No need to look for a flat spot like you would for a tent or a bivvy. Some people do find hammock camping too cold, but that's where your underblanket and tarp come into play. But obviously, adding in those extras are going to increase your setup weight. The other thing to remember is you need to learn how to tie a hammock knot. So it's a really good idea to head out with an experienced hammocking pal who can help show you the ropes. In terms of weight, this hammock is just 483 grams, which is even less than Felix's bivvy, and it also packs down really small. But for anything other than the most beautiful days, add in the tarp and your total system weight is just over a kilo, or add in that hefty underblanket and it's just over 2. I've used this hammock on everything from year-round overnighters to a 6-day bike pack on the Second City Divide. As a side sleeper, I adore using a hammock. However, if the weather is really grim, there's no beating a tent. I think we can all agree that there's not one perfect sleep system for all situations and conditions. It's really a personal choice, and it depends on where you're heading and when.
But what's your favourite sleep setup for bike packing? Let us know in the comments, and if you're an experienced bike packer, give us your recommendations for your favourite gear in the comments. Share your wonderful essays about your bikepacking adventures with this kit and we'll mark it out of 100.
A huge thank you once again goes to MagicShine for helping us make this video. If you enjoyed this video, then you definitely got to check out Robin's excellent bikepacking adventure right here.